lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and with me today, I have a really awesome guest. I have Steve McArdle of Vendetta, Holy Vindicator fame, Crowbar 9. I'm super stoked to finally get you on here, dude. I can't wait to unpack your comics with you, man.
Well, thank you, and glad to be here. Good, always fun to talk comics.
Yeah, man. So, generic question. I always ask this when I have a guest on for the first time I'm, chatting with you, is when did you first discover comics? What started your love for comic books?
Oh boy, yeah, that's easy. It was probably second grade, because every time you go into a new grade, you'd meet new people.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a kid there, and man, he had so many comic books, him and his brother. And right away, I just discovered Marvel and DC. And I knew who Spider-Man was and Batman and that sort of stuff. But to really read the comics and get into the art and like all the B and C characters, I loved it immediately. Every penny of my allowance went into comic books. I still remember the first one that I bought, my first, quarter allowance. It was a Marvel Team Up 20,
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man and the Black Panther, because I knew who Spider-Man was. I wanted to find out who's this guy, the Black Panther, but he looks cool. I want to find out more about this whole universe, and I just drank it in. I love comics like ever since I was a kid.
Right on, dude. Yeah, I think I was just a little bit younger than that when I first got into it, but yeah, I didn't. It's funny that you mentioned like you discovered it through a friend. Like I didn't really have a lot of friends that read comics, so it's kind of interesting to hear you say like you had somebody that just brought a lot of comics with them to school and stuff.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of other kids that, it was all like sports and everything,
Yeah.
and like I was never a sports guy,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just funny. Like we hit it off and started talking, and boy, he had everything, Ghost Rider and Tomb of Dracula and Brave and the Bold and Son of Satan, and I just loved it all, and just bought new books as they were coming out. And then eventually I'd get my dad to take me to a convention or a comic book store, and I'd try to find the old stuff and start filling in the numbers. But yeah, right away I just took to it. I was like, I love drawing, because I grew up like with Frazetta.
I love Frazetta, didn't you?
And like, the monster movies and stuff like that. It was all together, sort of molded together. It was perfect.
Did you kind of gravitate more towards those kind of characters then? Like, I mean, the books you mentioned right off top are more of like the supernatural, like Ghost Rider, the like Johnny Blaze version at least, and then Son of Satan, stuff like that.
At the time, I was into the traditional superhero stuff, plus the sort of horror. I was really into Conan, like, at the mid 70s, everybody was into Conan, and it was very Frazetta-ish.
Right.
So yeah, all that stuff.
And when did you, I mean, you said you were drawing and stuff. So when did you decide you wanted to make your own comics?
Well, I've been just messing with it for a lot of years. I've been drawing for as long as I can remember, but it wasn't until maybe junior high or high school that I started really getting serious and like thinking about doing it as a job and as an occupation. I wanted to draw for Marvel or DC, like a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I got to be that age and graduated and everything, it was like, I don't know if I can really make a living at this. I'm really not that good. I don't, but I was inspired by the black and white explosion. It was starting to happen. And you could see other people making their own comic books. And I was like, well, I could do that, and then I'm going to eventually want to do my own stories anyway. So I thought of self-publishing. Red Bullet was sort of like, my resume. I thought like, well, I'll do some Vendetta, and then maybe I'll show it around, and maybe someone at Image will hire me, or somebody at Marvel will like it, and then I really enjoyed what I was doing, got into it, and I just kind of wanted to do that. I just wanted to kind of build that up and make that into something.
And who are some of your influences, like artistically, or even outside of comics? Like, I know music is a huge influence on you as well.
Yeah. So I grew up with like all like hard rock, metal stuff. So man, like those, Iron Maiden album covers, and obviously Frazetta, like I said, But most of the Marvel, like the John Buscema's and Jim Steranko's and George Perez and John Byrne and Michael Golden and Art Adams, so much, all that stuff, all the classic 60s, 70s, 80s, Marvel, DC, black and white stuff as well. Then the other stuff started coming in. We started to see like Ninja Turtles, Eastman and Laird, Tim Vigil,
Yeah.
Dead World, which is one of the oldies that I love, like from the back in the day. Vincent Locke, so much stuff. And then I just try to put it all in a blender and then mix it with the stuff that I like, that I think is exciting, and try to weave a story in there too.
Did you pick Turtles up off the shelves when it was first coming out?
I remember hearing the buzz about it, and I missed the first couple. The first one that I found was number 3.
Okay.
So I came in a couple months late, but I jumped in by the third one, and I was hooked. I followed that for years.
Yeah, I'm just curious because like I'm kind of jealous of people that were able to, because I'm a huge Turtles fan, and I've gone back and got issues. I don't have first prints, mind you, but like I have basically the entire first run of Mirage. But like I'm every time, like especially reading those editorials, all I could think of was like, man, if I was alive when this came out, because like I was born in '87, so '84 is when they dropped. But like just like watching that progression, and then because I really love the black and white boom and a lot of those comics that came from that. So like to
Mhm.
be able to experience that firsthand, like I can imagine that was just a very exciting time, especially for a fan of comics.
Yeah, it really was, and it was inspiring too, because we were starting to see like guys that are doing it themselves can put together a really professional product and become successful like within a short amount of time. Like I was hardcore, so like I had joined the fan club. I had those little metal, I didn't even play D&D or any of those games. I was never one of those guys, but I even got the little metal turtles because I just love the turtles. I want to help see them succeed. I wanted to see them become big.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and long story short, like I said, it wasn't long before the turtles were on TV with a cartoon, and the toys were in the stores, and it was pop culture.
Yeah, that's how I mean that's how I discovered it. I mean, if as far back as I can remember. I mean, the cartoon came out a year when I was 1. I think it came out in '88. If I'm maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong,
I
but
think that's
like
right.
so like from a very young age, that's what I had. Like I had all the Turtles toys. I don't have them anymore, sadly. But like, and then the Ninja Turtle movie was the first movie I ever saw. My grandma took me when I was 3.
That's great.
So, which is nuts to think about. Like watching it as I've gotten older, I'm like, man, that's kind of dark for a young kid. I mean, it's still like one of my favorite comic book movies, but it is super inspiring to like, and I know a lot of other people like yourself were super inspired by watching. Like, hey, we don't need to go to Marvel and DC. We can do our own thing and make money doing it. Not everybody was as successful, obviously, as Turtles, but still to be able to do it yourself and own the characters and not have to give them up, I think is just, it's such a great story.
Yeah, I remember, and especially that time, like they were the people that taught us about creators' rights, because that was really big. They were like the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund.
Mm-hmm.
There was the whole movement to get the artwork back to Jack Kirby.
I remember reading about that. Yeah.
So I was starting to become aware that like, well, maybe making my own comics would be better than working for Marvel if I could make it into something.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm not able to make a living doing it, I make a living doing something else, but can still continue to do my comics.
Right. And where did the idea come for Vendetta, Holy Vindicator?
Boy, just playing around with ideas and drawing different costumes and superheroes. And then I came up with the idea of the skull mask and that his
Yeah.
face was scarred. And then I put together the whole origin and the backstory. That's one thing that to me that's important, is putting together a solid backstory. Before I did that first book, I wanted to make sure I had the characters and where it's going to go and origins and everything, really pretty solidly laid out.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really stands out to me too about your art and that I really love is like, first of all, the action scenes, but like your rendering, like you're drawing all those backgrounds, like where sometimes some of the comics at the time, and that's, I'm not like knocking anybody for doing it, but sometimes you don't really see like the backgrounds, especially back then, like that are fully like fleshed out and drawn, like you'll have a lot of just characters, and it's an easier way, right, to get a comic book out. You just draw the, for lack of a better way of saying it, like the cool shit, right? Like the stuff that's fun to draw. Buildings aren't necessarily fun to draw from the artists that I've talked to, or whatever. Drawing a car can be like, not as fun as drawing like, the main character just beating the shit out of somebody. So that's
right, exactly. But oh yeah, Graphomania. Yeah, because I love all that stuff too. The Turtles was like really dense. A lot of that black and white stuff was really dense. I like a lot of detail and a lot of, and I throw in lots of little tiny, Easter eggs or whatever you want to call them, little things in the artwork, little jokes or little things like that, like a McDonald's bag that says McArdles, or maybe I'm listening to a certain CD at the time. I'll draw a little graffiti of their logo or a band flyer for them or something. So I'm trying to I just have fun with it and just try to like put everything, as much stuff into it as I can, for the reader to really have stuff to go as deep into it as they want.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate that, and that's what I love about comic books, is that you can put all those kind of little things into the drawings in the background and stuff. And you kind of talked about like getting into the self-publishing. What was it like navigating self-publishing at the time? Like, how did you market the book? How did you get it into people's hands when you're doing it all by yourself?
Yeah, it was tricky. I really didn't know anything about it. I had worked in printing places, so it was good. I had a background in printing and graphics, but it wasn't until my dad saw the artwork. We're on vacation, and he was like, "Wow, Steve, wow, you're really taking this artwork seriously. Like, you've really come a long way since the last drawings and comics that he had seen me do." I had the Vendetta 1 pages I was working on, and he gave me the money to print that first issue. And all I did was a 2-color cover, but I used the best paper I could. Like, people that have seen them, it's like nice, heavy 60-pound white paper stock. And then I did as much homework as I could to find out about the distributors, sent it to all the distributors, tried to sell as many so I could do the second issue, tried to sell as many of that so I could do the third issue, and just try to keep the snowball going,
And what were the print runs on some of those first issues?
Yeah, 1 and 2 was 500 copies. And number 2, I was like, what can I do to make number 2 big? People care about the second issue. Like, I'm already like, how do I sell this? And make it valuable. So I hand signed and hand numbered every issue. Of people have Vendetta number 2, the originals. Every one of those is hand signed, hand numbered.
And so like let's jump to now, to like, like years later, right? The Power Comics YouTube channel shows your book on there, and now that like from there you're getting like, I know you did an interview with them. The book was like, they did the overhead going through the issue, so it's reigniting fandom for it, but also bringing new people. Like, what was your initial reaction when you like the offer to republish it with Floating World and kind of give it to a new audience?
Oh man, it's a dream come true. It's really a dream come true. Like, I couldn't be happier or more excited. My band was kind of fading out over the last several years. We did our second album, and it was hard keeping a lineup. It's really hard keeping a solid lineup of a band. And so I knew that was going to kind of come to an end. And I've been looking to I have to do something creative. Otherwise I go crazy, So if I'm not doing as much music, I go back to my art, or vice versa. So I knew I was going to start doing more artwork. I've been thinking about doing a new comic book. I had left off with an issue of Crowbar 9 I'd never finished. And so when the opportunity came to publish Vendetta with the Artillery book as a trade paperback, I was like, this is perfect. Like, I've got all the original artwork. I never sold any of my pages. I've got all this bonus stuff that I've been planning to use that I never got to. I was going to do a Gene Colan cover. I had the Gene Colan commission. I was going to do some Tuska covers or pinups. I had the Tuska commissions. So once that book happened, I was like, I got to get busy. I went back, I inked the Gene Colan and the Tosca pieces. I pulled up the letters pages and the reviews and put together, like, some people just go, oh, it's just a reprint of the 5 old comics. That trade paperback has got so much new material in that that we did over the last 2 years just to get that together. I drew a new cover. There's the interviews, there's the intros, all kinds of stuff. But it was so exciting. And then once that happened, then I go, boy, I never finished Crowbar 9 #3. Like I never got to finish that third and last issue. That was the trilogy. And then that would wrap all of the storylines that I had all together. And so, finally now with the Crowbar 9 book, man, it's over 20 years, almost 25 years later. It makes me feel old, but but it's a dream come true to finally finish that series and wrap everything that I'd planned up years ago.
Did you kind of like at a point like think like, oh, I'm never gonna finish this?
I'd always had it in the back of my head I would.
Yeah.
But I didn't know when, or like, would anybody care? Like, what am I going to do? Like all these years later, like, do people who bought 1 and 2 remember it to buy #3? What do? I publish it all as one new book? So it worked perfectly to do it as like an 80-page giant. I went back actually and I redid some of the pages. I rewrote some of the stuff a little bit just so it makes more sense. It's a way better product.
But so speaking of Crowbar 9, like I already asked you how like good it feels. Obviously, you said it's a dream come true finishing it. The newsprint. I am very, very happy that it was done on newsprint because I love that format for like comic books. Was it your decision to do it that way?
I think shout out to Jason over at Floating World. He had republished a couple of other books, Power Comic stuff, and they had done it on the newsprint.
Okay.
And so he mentioned doing the same formula, and it worked out great because it's a nice thick 80-page book. It came out perfect. I love it too because that takes me back.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that what Floating World is doing in conjunction with Power Comics is it's really dope to see some of these comics. Like otherwise, you're spending a lot on eBay. Like it's just gonna kill you if you're trying to find some of these old comics, if you can even find them. So being able to see these brought back for an old audience that maybe doesn't have them anymore, or a new audience like myself that's just discovering it for the first time, like shout out to Power Comics and Floating World for bringing all this dope shit back in print.
Yeah, definitely shout out and thank you, Evan, Gabe, Remy, Ben Mara over Power Comics, Jason at Floating World, and Jeff Miller. He's another guy who's a player in this too. He was just like a fan who reached out to me. He had the books from the 90s and wrote to me and wanted the books he didn't have. So he got doubles and triples of some of the books. And then he helped, I think, send them around. I think he might have sent them to, I don't know if he sent them to Kayfabe or if he sent them to Power Comics. But then I started to see some of my stuff online. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of weird. And then
you froze again. So I wanted to ask, how does the response differ now for your work as opposed to like what it was back then?
Boy, the response now has been great. Like it was a good response back then too. People liked it. I remember I'd go out to the conventions and I'd sit there and sign books for people and do free sketches on their backer boards. But the response lately to the trade paperback and everything has really been overwhelming.
What are they saying? Oh yeah, you were saying that the response now has been really extremely well. Like I know that I mean I definitely wasn't hearing about it, and the fact that like Floating World is put out this like really sick edition with like the foil cover, like you said, all the bonus material in there is really dope. And I hate when I get a trade of something and there's nothing but the comic. Like you have to differentiate it. Especially if you expect certain fans to double dip, because
Of
I am
course.
one of those fans that will get the singles to support it,
Hmm.
but I'll get the collection if there's some like added incentive to it, like if it's just the comics, I'm like, well, I already have it.
I'm like that
What?
too. There's no reason to rebuy it again.
Exactly. So I really do. I love the package that they put together, both with this and with the Crowbar 9. I think that they're just really dope. I really, really love the books. Do you have plans for any more comics, any more stuff that you're going to partner up with, Floating World, Power Comics, or maybe even do the self-publishing thing again?
Well, I'm talking to Power Comics. And see, that was the whole point back then was to wrap Crowbar 9 with that third issue
Mm-hmm.
and start with a new Vendetta. So I've been working behind the scenes a little bit on starting a new Vendetta issue. And I want to plot out several issues and maybe just do a new series.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. Oh, I can't wait for that shit.
I think that's where I'm most comfortable. I love Crowbar 9. It's different doing a team book than doing a single character.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Vendetta, he's kind of like I think he's my best character. And it's all in the same universe. I want to bring back Artillery. I want to bring back some of the Crowbar 9 characters. You'll see Lord Leviathan come back and the Black Dagger. So I got a whole, I'm sort of planning out the next couple years.
That's awesome, man. I can't wait. I know quite a few people that are going to be super stoked to hear that there's going to be more coming from you. Is there anything else, any other projects you're working on?
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, there is. I also got in touch with a great dude, Chance Priest at Victory Comics and Toys. Man, I talked to him one night on the phone, and it was like talking to you, honestly, man. Like for the first time talking to him on the phone, it was like we were buddies. Like we were talking the same comics, the same toys, and stuff like that. And he just started to mention that he goes, I make my own action figures. I love the Vendetta book. He's like, I love your stuff. I love your art. And give too much away here, but I like to show little stuff for people who are checking this out that they can actually look at too. We're going to have Vendetta action figures
That's so dope. That's
coming
awesome.
this year. Thank you to Chance and everybody that's been supportive. This is the unmasked Vendetta. So I didn't even know he was going to do this. He sculpted this first because I'm just learning about toy making. They're going to be super limited. I'm going to hand paint these myself. So they'll be in small numbers, hand numbered and signed on the bottom. So you got the scarred Vendetta here, and we'll have the masked Vendetta coming probably in a couple of weeks.
Right on.
I put together some packaging artwork for these, and go from there. Like I'd like to do maybe a Black Dagger figure, maybe an Artillery. He's busy doing a lot of stuff. He said he has people ask him all the time to make toys for him, and he just says no because he doesn't really like the property and he doesn't have the time. He's doing this for me because he likes Vendetta and
That's awesome.
And so I also too I did some commissions for him, Warriors of the Universe. You check out his book. So I'll have some maybe their alternate or variant covers with my artwork. His characters on his books coming out soon too.
Oh, I'll definitely keep a look at it. I haven't heard of that book. So I know the name because you shared about the toy on Facebook. Yep. So that's where I saw his name, but I didn't know he had his own book. I'll definitely have to be checking that out.
He's got his own line of comics and toys. Yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah, right on. How are you going to distribute that toy? Are you going to sell them personally? Like direct from you? Is that how people are going to get them?
I'm going to start like that. I don't really have any distribution set up. I mean, I got a little Etsy store and an eBay store. And they're going to be very limited because I'm painting them myself. I'm going to hand glue the bubble onto the cards. But I got a whole little process. He's showing me like a lot of his knowledge. He's sharing a lot of tips with me because he's been doing this for years. He's boiled this down to a science where I'm just amazed. He went through different plastics. And he said, like, the plastic on these is really tough. So he's using the same plastic that's in like your dashboard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then he makes the hinges on the shoulder and the socket for the arms. I'm using almost like modeling paint, and then like it's going to be almost like an auto clear shellac sealer to seal every toy too, so the paint doesn't chip. But he's got years of trial and error under his belt already, so I'm just trying to learn from what he did.
Well, sign me up. I definitely will get one
Right?
from you. That figure looks dope. So,
Oh,
and
cool! Thanks.
yeah, hell yeah. And,
I'm super stoked and excited that just it worked out perfectly. Like we ended up talking one night for like 3 hours on the phone, and I was like, "Look, man, I can do some art for your comic book covers." He's like, "Dude, I want to sculpt. I'll make some toys." So yeah, this year I'm looking. I'm hoping to help. I'm hoping to get a new issue of Vendetta out this year
okay.
and have some action figures.
Do you have any like long-term plans with Vendetta? I mean, I know you said you're gonna plot out some issues, but like what like you said of getting one issue out, but like are you planning to do a mini series? Do you think you're gonna like let it have room to become an ongoing potentially? Or do you have like a specific like a beginning, middle, end that you're kind of plotting out with this next round of Vendetta?
Yeah, I'm kind of going like ongoing series.
Okay.
I'm almost afraid to say too much or plan too much because it takes a long time
Hmm.
to do a book. And, hopefully my partnership with Floating World and Power Comics stays good, and hopefully people buy enough copies if they'll want to do another book. But yeah, I'm just trying to plan as far forward as I can and keep going with Vendetta. I've got all kinds of tons of characters I can bring in and out, just sort of like what I did with the miniseries,
Hmm.
and then see who people like. People loved Artillery right away. So then I did a single issue for Artillery. I may bring in a character or a little mini team that people love and maybe do a special one shot for them or something. But I think mainly just kind of going forward with Vendetta.
And how long does it take you? Like you draw traditionally, right? You're not doing it like digitally, are you?
Yeah, I do. I do. I'm so old school, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I do everything on paper, with pens, um, watercolor colors. Um, it's hard to find Zipatone, so I sometimes I'll even make copies of Zipatone and kind of paste in photocopy Zipatones.
That's it.
Or some of my stuff you can notice I've got even my own photography.
Hmm.
Uh, I'll go out on the holidays sometimes when there's no traffic and do buildings and good cityscapes uh, on my camera. And then I kind of print them off black and white, and then I'll add artwork to it and kind of blend that in as, Crowbar 9 headquarters or, locations, sometimes little backgrounds.
That's dope. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely love the traditional aspect of it because I mean, I know you said you don't sell your pages, but I mean, there is always that. I mean, you can't sell a digital drawing, right? I mean, I
Right,
guess you could,
exactly.
but I guess you could, but it's not the same, like that's a
Mhm.
whole nother thing with NFT crap. But yeah, I love the traditional aspect of it. I mean, like how I know you said the newsprint that wasn't your decision, but how like involved are you in terms of like the paper stock and stuff like that? Were you kind of hands on with that again with Vendetta?
Oh, oh yeah, definitely. As soon as Jason meant, because we were going over ideas, Evan from Power Comics, Jason from Floating World, and me, and one of them mentioned, "Hey, we should do foil stamp cover," and that was it. I was like, "Foil stamp cover, we have to do it. We must do it. I refuse to change it. I want that foil stamp cover, red on black. That will pop. Yes, because it's '90s. It was a two-color cover to begin with. You know,
Yeah. And then how long does it take you typically to do an issue?
boy, the first issue of Vendetta took a long time because I'm still trying to write ahead the storylines and create the characters. I had a lot of that stuff already done too, like in my notebooks.
Hmm.
I probably spent a year on that first issue of Vendetta.
Oh wow, okay.
And then my goal was yeah, it was probably a year for that first Vendetta. And then I was trying to do a quarterly publishing, like every 3 months. And since I had like, I think number two done by the time I published the first one, I
Hmm.
was ahead. And I was only going to do the four. So if I could try to produce quick enough, get the 4 done. But there was so much other stuff too. Like I did trading cards for number 4. Um, I had a guy come about making model kits for the Black Dagger. So I was doing designs for the model kit and licensing contracts and stuff. So I didn't quite stick to the quarterly schedule. I was probably a little late here and there, but I did the best I could.
Yeah. Well, what's like in terms of the new stuff? Like, do you want to try to stick to some kind of schedule, or do you not have that kind of set? I know you said you kind of want to. Are you going to do a backlog of stuff? Is what I'm trying to ask. Like, are you going to have like a few issues done so that it can come out on a semi-regular schedule, or have you not really thought about that yet? That part of it.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a very good idea. Maybe before I say anything, I should get an issue or two in the can, actually, because you know, I'm not sure how long it's going to take to do a whole issue, but I would like to be able to have it on some kind of a schedule.
Okay.
Even if it was every 4 months or every 6 months or some kind of a thing where you could kind of like, oh, it's July, should be a new Vendetta book coming.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I love the books, both of them. I'm very excited for more. Before I let you go, I was just curious, like what stuff are you reading right now that you're digging? Anything new? Any comments?
Yeah, man, everything. I'm discovering all kinds of stuff. Like a lot of like kind of like underground looking stuff, like a lot different than the stuff that I would normally look at for artists. Like uh like Space Riders, Alexis Zarit. Like
Oh yeah.
I love his stuff. It's kind of psychedelic, kind of black light. Heavy Metal Drummer is good. Boy, I've been trying to think. There's all kinds of stuff. There's really a lot of good comics and comic artists that are out there now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I'm following any specific company anymore, sort of like I used to back when we had, like Eclipse or stuff like that. So
Right.
I'm just trying to find stuff everywhere. But yeah, man, there's a lot of really good stuff out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like the best time to be a comics fan,
It
probably.
is.
Like because there really is a comic for everybody. I mean, I think I've said that the last 3 or 4 videos I've recorded with people, but there really is. I mean, there's every type of comic you could imagine. I mean, it is getting more towards like what manga is, like how there's
Yeah.
like there's a manga about soccer or ping pong, like they're
Yeah.
starting to become that same thing for American comics. And I think that we're in a really exciting time, especially the indie scene, the underground scene. There's so much good stuff being published, and you're yet another creator that I'm really stoked that I discovered. I can't wait for more stuff to come from you. And for everybody listening and watching, do you want to let everybody know where we can find you, where we can get some of your stuff? If it's not just from Floating World, I know you said you have an Etsy, and I'll drop all those links down below for everyone.
Sure. Yeah. Find me on Facebook or Instagram, Steve Ace McArdle. I've got a eBay store, Steve Knievel, and an Etsy. I think that's under Red Bullet Studios or Red Bullet Comics. I want to try to keep the Red Bullet imprint, so hopefully that'll still be a visual part, even though hope it'll be published through Power Comics and Floating World.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, reach out. I've got books. I sell them for cover price and I sign them. I've got some merch. I also do commissions too.
All right. Yeah. So like you said, you hit up Steve, pick up those books. They're really dope. And for everybody listening and watching, make sure you also follow us on the Comic Lounge. Hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all the new dope shit coming out. And Steve, thank you again for joining me and talking some comics with me. I definitely want to do this with you again sometime
Oh,
soon.
dude, thank you, Ron. I really want to say, like, I'm honored to be on your show, man.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure talking.
You froze.
Oh shit! Give me 1 second here.
It's all right. It's all right.
Let me finish this.
Yeah.
Yeah, cut off mid sentence. There we go. No, Ryan, because I've noticed like the interviews that you do. I haven't had a chance to watch all of them. I got a little list. I'm already waiting. I'm going to watch this week. Man, like you know your comic books, and so it was a pleasure talking with you. And I'm sure I'm by far the least famous guy that you've interviewed. You've got Paul Levitz, you've got uh, uh, all these great interviews, Steve Rude, and all these incredible people. So thank you very much for taking the
Oh,
time.
dude, it is my absolute pleasure. Comic books are my favorite medium, and you're a
Me
part of
too.
it, dude. To me, there's no like I don't look at it in terms of like big name creators or household names. Like I want to talk to everybody that's making dope shit, and you're a creator that makes some dope stuff. So I love being able to like have you on, chat with you, and then like maybe somebody just like they come to my channel for a different interview, right, or different content, and they see your stuff, and hopefully you get some new fans out of it. Like that's kind of one of my goals with this channel. So it's my pleasure and privilege to have you on, dude. So I thank you.
Well, thank you, man. It's an honor. It's been a lot of fun talking comics.
Yeah, dude,
Anything you want
definitely.
to do it again, let me know.
Definitely, dude. We'll definitely do it again sometime in the future.
Sounds good.